What is going on, guys? So we have Joey today. Joey is a reseller and a financial coach. So first off, welcome Joey to the podcast.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Definitely, man. So kind of give us the background about you. What's been your day job so far? Like, what got you into reselling? What got you into financial coaching and reselling as well?
So I've been reselling since 2000 on eBay,
Mhm.
off and on just to pay for certain goals, certain things we were saving for. Kind of fell away from it for a little bit. And then when I went back to get my MBA, I started selling again to sort of pay for classes. And being a reseller, I realized that there's a need in the reselling community for financial planning, for financial coaching, for long-term goal planning, retirement savings, all that kind of stuff. And I felt like, man, I could really help some people out by being able to pass on my knowledge of both worlds to people. I also use reselling as a tool when I'm working with clients to help them get out of debt as one of the reasons and paths that they choose. Um, yeah, so it's been a great tool to have, and that's about it.
Definitely. Perfect. Yeah, no, cool, man. There's a couple topics that's kind of flown out at me. So first off, why have your clients start reselling? Is it just a way to make the extra cash, try to get out of debt? Or what's the main reason?
Yeah, it's probably the easiest and fastest thing they can do to get
Mhm.
started. They all have stuff around their house that they don't need. They need to declutter. And instead of throwing it out, let's make some cash off of it and put that cash to good use. Let's
Yeah,
start paying down some stuff. Yeah, get that budget going, fill in those gaps, and then start living the life.
it's kind of interesting. A lot of people, except for resellers, once you get into the reselling world, you kind of see everything as a dollar amount, which is interesting. Not a lot of people see that.
No, I do. I was actually at Target the other day, and I saw a guy wearing a vintage like basketball shirt, like
Mhm.
T-shirt from like 1996 NBA champ shirt or something. I knew it was a vintage shirt. And I knew how much it cost. Right? He asked me 2 years ago before I started selling, and I wouldn't know any of that. So, oh, it's a cool
Definitely.
shirt, but I'm like, oh, it's vintage, and that's at least $45 on eBay, maybe more depending on the condition and the grade. Yeah, you definitely see things in a different light.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I kind of seen interesting, even the clients that we work at HAMMOQ, right, is a lot of people don't even know their numbers, especially like the profit and loss. Majority on the eBay side, if you get into more Amazon, it's more like structured, so there's
Mm.
a lot more numbers. It's easier to grab too. But what have you seen, and why don't people know their numbers, especially in the business, let alone like their personal finances?
I think in the business, especially if you look at eBay in the past, it was very disjointed. So you had several companies running your numbers for you. You had your eBay sales that run through PayPal, fees from here, fees from eBay, and then you deduct out. So you had a lot of different numbers to work with. I personally like managed payments. I know that's a big thing people were sort of iffy on because managed payments, when I get paid, that's my money, right? So all the fees are taken out, and then I just have to do a simple math equation of what did I pay for the item minus what I'm getting out of eBay. That's my profit. So it's real easy on that end. I think what I noticed in the beginning a few years ago when I was really diving deep into this is a lot of people in the reselling world live in the here and now or they're to their next sale. They're not thinking 2, 3, 4, 5 years ahead as far as investing and saving and reinvesting into your business and pulling percentages out. A lot of people live by the seat of their pants. They live by their next sale. They get in trouble. So I think it's a long term gain. It's a long term goal for this. You want to build a business. You don't want to build a something that lasts 2 or 3 months. If that's what you want to do, then it's fine. But if you're in this to really be in it long term, which is what a lot of the sellers are promoting on their Instagram channels and YouTube is how to do this long term, then you really have to know what's going on and you really have to dive deep. It's not just about that next sale or next pallet. You have to really be methodical about what you're listing, how you're listing it, going over your prices on a consistent basis, delisting, relisting, and just trying to find different things that work for you. Because what works for you may not work for the next person. So you really have to
So,
scale it to your specific business and just take. I'm a big believer of taking bits and pieces from everybody.
mhm.
And what works for them may not work for me, but I'll find a little thing and tweak it to work for me better. And that's how I work with people. That's how I work my business.
It's a constant improvement, right? It's not
Yeah,
just like 1 to 0, right? Or 1 to 100. It's just constantly those steps, like kind of talked about the processing, yeah, especially on the
Yeah.
processing side, like listing, delisting, relisting. A lot of people really struggle with that kind of stuff just because it's a lot of effort and a lot of work, but let alone like everything gets lost. We working with one lady right now. She has like 5 different processes going, right? And we're trying to like, okay, this is how you streamline, this is how you start cutting things down. Let's start getting you to move forward, because the more things you have all over the place, the harder it is for you to scale just in general, right? And like you kind of, you just said, like, and then the more of a side hustle it is, right? Rather than a full-fledged business, which is, it's honestly it's fascinating just in general.
Right. And I think it's really, there's something to people who, if you think of yourself as a business, even if you're selling one item a day or one item a week, if you think of yourself as a business and have that mindset, you'll treat it differently than just, like you said, a side hustle. Side hustles are great. They usually evolve into full-time things, but side hustles, I look at those as like shooting stars, right? They're right there, boom, flash in the pan. You get burned out pretty quickly and you move on to something else. If you really want to scale a business, you really have to think of it as a foundational mindset of how do I get bigger? How do I get better? And just have that. You usually will see yourself sit up better, sit up more with a better posture, have that more better of a mindset if you're a business owner. And you have to just start thinking that.
Yeah, let's even dive deeper into that, like mindset wise. One of my I lived with this guy back in the day, and like he's like, if I made a couple grand off a sale, I would just quit, right? Or I wouldn't work for a while. Like, what's the different
Mhm.
mindset? What's a way? I'll actually make this question more interesting. What's a way to improve your mindset, and to instead of like that side hustle mindset to like that like full fledged business mindset? What's a way to keep improving on it?
I think it's initially it's to set mini goals. And I
I
think if
like
you
that.
can hit those mini goals, make them realistic. And once you start hitting them, you start getting a sense of accomplishment. So
Mhm.
when I work with clients on paying off debt, we use the debt snowball method, which is made popular by Dave Ramsey.
Mhm.
So what that is, you pay all your debt smallest to largest. You put everything you can at the smallest, you pay it off as quickly as you can, you roll it into the next one, you roll the next one. So by the time you get to your biggest debt, you're paying a huge chunk of money, but you have all these wins along the way.
Mhm.
So you get this positive reinforcement to keep going. So if you set up something where, and I've been in chat rooms and in Facebook groups where people are just starting out, and the first thing they did was they bought a pallet of something, and they get on the board and they ask a question of, did I do good? What should I sell this for?
Yeah.
Does anybody know this brand? And it's like, if you don't know what you're selling, how can you really be successful at selling it? Right.
Yep.
So set up a mini win. That's why when I start with clients and we get them started like on eBay and Poshmark, it's basically get something out of your closet that the shirt, the item, you can describe it in your sleep. That's going to be a good testament to writing a description on eBay.
Mhm.
And that's going to be a good, if somebody asks you a question, you can answer it right away. You know the product and you're invested, and then you know what to sell it for. And then when you make that sale, you go through the process of, okay, I got the money, now I can ship it. Good. And then worry about scaling up at that point. Don't worry about starting with, I need to make 100 sales in the first day.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. Start one sale the first week or two and you'd be great. And then start getting better. My goal is now 2 sales a week, 3 sales a week, 4 sales a week. And
Just
that's,
like
yeah,
the progression, right? Like that's all it's all about. Just keep building that progression up. Like you said, that snowball, it does help out a lot, right?
yeah.
And on like your clients that you bring in for like the financial side, with like is other than reselling, do you have them do anything else in terms of like getting out of debts, like or is like or and also a majority of clients is the main reason why they're in debt because they're spending too much, or they just don't, or they just are they struggling with saving.
It's a broad spectrum. So it really depends on their money scripts, which is basically how they were raised and what sort of events transpired on them to sort of shape the way they view money. Some people are absolute spenders, and some people are absolute savers. Some people are in between. Some people are oblivious to the fact that you spend more on credit cards than if you pay cash. And so people just sometimes are just scared to talk about money. Money is one of those three things you don't talk about with people.
Yeah.
It's usually money, sex, and religion,
Mhm.
right? So, but it's one of those things you should talk about with people, and you should have a grasp of, especially with your family or somebody that's close to you or somebody you want to be your accountability partner in a
Mhm.
sense. Um, so when I'm working with people who are getting out of debt, it's basically Especially in California, but it's all over the place. It's income to spending levels. Like people have a tendency to overspend and live outside their means because we're all keeping up with the Joneses. We're all watching
Mhm.
that, seeing that Instagram video of that, that mom with 3 kids at the beach, and you're sitting with mom. I want to go to the beach too, so just charge it and go. And 2 years later, you're like, oh man, I got all this debt. How am I going to do this? But some people don't mind living in the debt world. I mean, they
Mhm.
operate just fine. It's not important to them enough to get out.
Mhm.
Other people realize they're stuck and they see that they're robbing themselves of their retirement
Mhm.
because, yeah, they're living in the now, but they have nothing for later. And
Yep.
so they realize they have to make that change. So when I work with people, it's usually budget shortfalls. I mean, they don't
Okay.
have enough in their budget to cover their expenses or to make any real dent. So we have to sort of figure out a way to increase income and decrease spending along the way.
Mhm.
That's the same thing in the business world when you think about profitability, right? You
Yep.
either decrease your prices and increase your sales or vice versa so you can make a profit. Same thing you got to do with your internal budget. So I'll have them do things like eBay and Poshmark to get started, but I also have them do with the other side hustles like Uber, grocery delivery, like Instacart, Ship, DoorDash, stuff like that. Easy things that they can sign up for on their phone, get out, make quick bucks, influx of cash into their system, and see those positive wins going on.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
And then what let's go to three like biggest traps you see people falling in to get in that debt. And then on top of that, the next question, like the following question is like you seem like the Dave Ramsey, like you've read the Dave Ramsey books. I saw on your website you've had take pictures with Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
Is there a good side to debt as well?
All right. So the biggest traps you said?
Yep.
Hmm. Three biggest traps. I think the first one would be not researching, right?
Mm.
So what I like to do is you got to do your due diligence when you're buying something. If you can afford it and you want to buy it, do your due diligence on where you can get the best price for it. Don't always just settle on the first place you see because you may end up seeing it later on for cheaper. And always just have a little bit of sense of like pausability when you're buying something big. Always like to give myself a couple of days if I want to buy something to make sure I really want it. And I'm not just going to buy it. It's going to sit in the box in my house and I wasted a ton of money on it. Right. That's probably the first one. Um, the second one is not having a budget. I mean, actually, that might be the first one. The budget for me is foundational. Everything you do above and beyond in your financial planning life or financial life is built upon that budget. You need to know where your money's going and how you're spending it. Because if you don't know where it's going, it's just going to go elsewhere, fly around, and you have no idea, you have no control over it. So you have to keep
Mhm.
control over it. And what I like to tell my clients with a budget is it's not a restrictive thing. You don't think about being on a budget. I can't spend money on this. I can't go here. Oh my gosh. As long as you build it into your budget and it works with your numbers and it works within your goals, I'm fine. I'm fine when we're working together. If you want to put in a budget line that you want to have a eating out budget of $1,000 a month
Mhm.
and you have no debt, great.
Mhm.
But if you have $50,000 in debt, maybe we got to decrease that a little bit and refocus a little bit. And then later on, you can go eat out all you want. There's the
Yeah.
priorities and goals there. And I think just again, the sense of the biggest one would be again, no long-term planning. Again, living in the
Okay.
here and now part of it, and there's not planning long-term. So people sacrifice their retirement accounts. They're only doing the bare minimum
Mhm.
if their employer does it. Uh, if you're self-employed, like most of us are in the eBay e-commerce world,
Mhm.
we probably don't have anything except if we
Yeah.
worked at a corporate job in the past. We haven't even thought about a 401k or a simplified plan or anything for retirement. We're just reselling is the way we're going to do it, right?
Yep.
And resell forever.
We've seen a lot of like people probably in their 40s or probably 60s and 50s and 60s. They're like, I'm reselling as my retirement, right? There's this one guy, he started reselling as his retirement plan, right? Like you
Yeah,
kind of hit on top of the head, right? Not too much planning in the future, and like he's already
yeah,
in his 50s or 60s. I don't know exact age, but that's what he seemed like. And he's like, oh, I got to resell. That doesn't seem like the best. I love reselling, but it doesn't seem like the best backup plan is to start reselling to keep some cash
yeah.
coming in.
I tell my elderly people I work with that I want to resell when I'm older because I want to, not because I
Mhm.
have to. I don't want to rely on selling, this little porcelain and Mickey doll to pay for my
Mhm.
prescription and hope it
Yep.
sells this month because I need to buy the pills. I don't want to live like that. So you got to make sure you have something in place that you can at least sustain your existence with, and then do reselling on top of it for fun.
Yeah, and that brings into like even like you start looking shorter term, right? You kind of talked about like not having long term plans. Like if you're trying to resell for your next prescription, it's like you want it bad, and you start cutting corners, and that usually ends up bad. Like cutting corners never really happens. It never really happens out good, right? It's usually
Yeah,
like a negative effect.
you don't want to sacrifice your principles in order to make a quick sale. So you don't want to. So if you're the type of person that you sell, X amount of dollar items always, I always sell $15 and up items, et cetera. And
Mhm.
then I got to sell this thing for $2 or $3 just to get a sale in. Like, boom, boom. That's not your business model or business plan. So
Yep.
don't adapt on the fly to something else because you're just going to get it. It's just going to screw it up. So,
Mhm.
it's, I can't say any better than that, I think.
Definitely,
Don't
definitely.
do it.
And then on in terms of the debt side, is there any positives to debt that you believe?
Well, being a Dave Ramsey coach, I would say there's no debt is good debt.
Okay.
The only debt that in that world that we're okay with is mortgage debt
Okay.
in a sense. 30-year fixed, 15-year fixed is probably the best way to go. 1/4 of your income, look for something in that range. It's only real good debt. I'm not a big fan of uh, credit card debt for miles. If
Mhm.
you do the math on it, it's like you're spending a lot of money to get a little bit of in return. I paid for a trip to Florida this year on a flight, $300 flight. How much did you spend? Oh, 30 grand on my credit card. The reason why is there's the potential of risk there. And I like to
Mhm.
remove risk from the equation. You, it's discipline, like we talked about earlier, with paying things off. So if you have no debt and you have a credit card that you spend monthly on and then you pay it off, right? That's that's fine because you put it in your budget and you're disciplined enough to do that. However, you're always introducing an element of risk because there might be a month where sales are short and now you have a
Mhm.
balance carryover. Now you have interest. And then maybe you miss a payment because of a family emergency. Now your interest rate goes from 6 to 16 or
Mhm.
24. And now you're all of a sudden you look up 2 months from now and you're like, man, that's a lot of extra money I have to pay. So that
Yep.
element of risk that you put into the equation and into your life is, for some people, they can handle it. For others, not. I like to just try to remove as much risk as possible.
Yeah, especially if people are already in debt, then let's remove that risk, right?
Yeah. There's a high
Uh,
correlation with people who have done debt consolidation, which
mhm.
essentially is one of those things where you roll your debts into one payment and you're like, okay, great, I'm going to be done after this. And within 2 or 3 years, they're still paying their debt consolidation and they've racked up the same amount of debt on the backside.
Yep. Well, that's how everybody makes money, right? In terms of like
Yeah.
credit card companies and everything. I'm in a little bit different mentality. Like especially like in the resale, if I believe that I can use debt to then use leverage, obviously, like you said, it does bring a lot of risk in. But like my past was Amazon. And we had about 175,000 in debt, and that ended up growing about 1.6 million in ARR, right? So we did lever up pretty hard, but like you said, if anything would have happened, that would have been catastrophic. Oh, it would have hurt pretty badly, right?
Right. Everything had to go just right for that to occur, right? Any little bump along the way.
Yeah.
So that element of risk that's there. And if you're able to handle that and you're able to go through that, then go for it. I'm always here to help you get out of it on the back end.
Yeah. I like that, man. I like that. Cool.
Yeah.
Let's jump into some like reselling sides, right? So what did you start out reselling, and where do you like what do you do right now for the resale? Are you like the thrift model, garage sale model? And then how'd you even start out in resale? You said you started back in the early 2000s, right?
Yeah. So in early 2000, I sold sports cards for my
Nice.
personal collection, just bought and sold. And then just things around the house like CDs, DVDs, video games, stuff like that. And then just did that for a really long time. I still have wish I could turn my camera around. I have still have a ton of cards just on my table here that I'm going
Yep.
through. I didn't realize how many I had. That's what happens when you buy, right? You just keep buying and you realize, oh my God, I got a ton I got to get rid of. But I did that for a while and then kind of just in and out for a bit. I
Mhm.
was with eBay back when you didn't have photos and you had money orders and checks in the mail and you had to
Interesting.
wait 7 days to clear before you could ship, that kind of thing. It was the
Damn.
Wild West.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. And then so then we recently, I had surgery about 2.5, 3 years ago on my shoulder, and I was incapacitated for a while. And while I was home, I started pulling stuff out of my closet. Like, I'm not wearing this anymore. I'm not wearing this. Let me just put something up on eBay. And I
Mhm.
put up like a football jersey, and it sold to overseas like right away. I was like, oh, okay. Just sitting in my closet. There's just money sitting in my closet, you know?
Yep.
And that sort of got the bug back. You know, that again, going back, that's that short little win
Yep.
that I had that sort of propelled me to kind of like, okay, let's try to find that next thing I could sell. And so we just started listing here and there and stuff around the house, and then got into the thrifting model where we went to the thrift stores to resell
Mhm.
things. And then we found some really big scores. And those are the things that kind of keep you going. When you find that
Yep.
thing for $1 and you sell it for 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the things that are like, oh, how can I find more of these?
Yeah.
This would be
It feels
great.
nice, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is awesome. But then you realize you go down to my garage and you're looking, man, there's a lot of stuff I bought that I thought would sell that's just still sitting here. And I
Mhm.
have to figure out what to do with it.
Yep. And it's hard to liquidate it too. Like garage sale, you can just garage sale and make some cash, but it's very, very hard
Yeah.
to liquidate that used items for sure.
Yeah. Especially now during lockdowns, we can't have garage sales or anything. So I'm
True.
just sitting there with a lot of stuff that I'm like, this would be definitely good garage sale material, but I just have to hold on to it or donate it.
Yeah. Kind of a creep. And
Yeah.
touching on the sports cars, like what have you done any sports card investing? I know like Gary V and these like so there's some big money going into sports card now. What did Wayne Gretzky sold for like 1.2 or something like that? Some high number. It was in the millions, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That one always sells high. The mantle always goes. There's the oh, what's the one? 1909 card. That's the rare card. Guy, the top of my head. It's the one that's always like they never have found enough copies of it, and that's the one that always gets sold for a couple $1 million every time it comes up.
There's so much money in that right now. I
Yeah,
mean, even
yeah,
thinking,
I know it's crazy. I mean, now, I mean, I think you're referring to it. And correct me if I'm wrong. Now you can actually buy shares of sports cards.
yeah, yeah, you can
Yeah,
do
so
that
you
now
can get
too.
in like the stock market and buy like I want one share of 85 McGuire or one share of 52 Tops Mantle or something like that. It's just like the stock market, man. I haven't gotten any of that. No,
I'm thinking
that's
about
not something I've done.
I'm thinking about picking up a Con. I'm a UFC fan. I'm thinking about picking up a Conor McGregor sign. It's going for like 9 grand now. It's expensive though. You can always hold it for like I'm thinking like a 30 to 50 year like investment, but who knows? Those things like it never like I just don't trust them for some reason.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's that they're very hit or miss. Like if you look at my collection, I have a ton of cards from guys that had really great rookie years, and then by the
Mm-hmm.
year three, they're out of the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if I just would have sold it year one, oh my God, I would have made some money. Now it's like I gotta lot them up. They're pennies, you know. So that's the thing. You don't know until you look back and then go through your like, oh, let me look at my 2007 Bowman, and you go, oh, I do have three Clayton Kershaw rookie cards. Okay, that was good for me to hold these.
Yeah, definitely, man.
So
Definitely. I love it. I love it. Other than that, like, so what's next plans with JR Financial Coaching? Let's dive down that. And then other than that, I'm pretty good on my questions.
yeah, so basically, I'm scaling up where I'm working with resellers and gig workers specifically. I do work with just regular people as well. I don't alienate, but gig workers and resellers are my wheelhouse because that's what I do.
Mhm.
When I said earlier about recommending like things like Uber and DoorDash to clients, I do them as well on the side.
Mhm.
So I like to recommend to my clients stuff that I do. So I can
Yep.
walk them through the process. I'm familiar with it if they have questions, and they see me doing it as well. So they know it's like I'm not just, spinning in a wheel here and say, oh, I'll go do that, you'll make money. I can show them what I'm doing and show them the process, how to be successful off the bat, as opposed to, let me go through the weeds and figure everything out for you. And then I'll show you what to do. And then you can just focus on being successful. So basically there, me personally, I'm always in the process of learning. So right
Mhm.
now I'm in a doctorate program for finance, a few
Nice.
years away
Congrats.
from that. Working on being a certified financial therapist. There's 95 to 98% of my conversations with clients is a therapy session, and 2% of
Interesting.
it's about money. But it relates a little bit, but it's always about just how they're doing. And all that correlates back to their spending habits, their saving habits, their budget goals. So just really getting into deep with people and how they are emotionally and physically and feeling. And, for me, it's just learning more about that aspect, behavioral side of things. So I can really help people address their future goals. And then just, growing and trying to grow on Instagram a little bit.
Nice.
Slowly but surely. And I'm actually relaunching a podcast coming up soon. Business-minded podcast on eliminating your outside noise and generating your internal success. So that's coming up soon.
I like it, man. I like it. Well, first off, congrats on moving that ball forward, especially on Instagram too. That can be powerful.
It's tough.
Yeah, definitely. And good work on JR Financial Coaching. I think that's made massive, dude. Other than that, dude, thank you for joining us. And hopefully we can do this again in the near future. And best success to you too, Joey.
Yeah, I love it, man. Anytime. Hit me up.
Yeah.